What do you say, everybody? Paul from Cleveland. It is 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. Well, should we give it another try? Okay, this is what I'm going to be using. This time I'm going to ditch the pre-mix mortar mix, and I'm actually going to use real Portland cement and sand. You might think that's the same thing, but after doing a little bit more research, what I discovered was that if you use dry sand, that causes air bubbles in the final pour. And you can't pre-moisten a ready mix. You have to start with the two parts. So this way I can put the general purpose sand into something, soak it in water for a while, and then add the Portland cement. So this is also the way that my grandfather did his pots years ago. He actually used washed sand and Portland cement. So maybe that's how he prevented air pockets in his molds. We'll see. Okay, what I'm going to do, let me make sure everything's in, everything's in focus here, everything's in the shot. I'm going to prep this whole bag of sand, and I'm going to use this sour cream container as a measuring device. Now, how this works is, it's 3 parts sand to 1 part cement. So I can't just, dump all the sand in and then know how much cement I'm going to need. I'm going to have to, measure it with something, and I figure, that's a convenient size to measure with. The interesting thing is the sand is already moist, so it's like a pre-moistened sand. So I don't think it's going to need much in the way of water, but I'm going to get it measured out, I'm going to get it moistened up, and then I'm just going to let it sit for a while I prep the mold. I'm going to go with 6 for now. And then if I need more, I have some leftover premix. I can just mix up a small batch of the premix. Let me find my hoe. Okay, I'm going to leave that to go. If I have to, when it comes time to do the additional mixing, I can take some of that water out before I add the cement if necessary. If you look at these molds, to be as old as they are, they're in really good condition. Like I said, these things are got to be pushing 50 years old, and they're in real good shape. Yeah, I should probably make sure I have the right numbers. Okay, that's 1 and 2. And that's 2. Good. Okay, the rest of this you've seen, putting the mold together, lubing it up and so forth. I'm going to pause this. I'll pick it up when I'm ready to start the mix and make another pour. If you're wondering, I don't know where my utility knife is. So I'm using a craft knife instead. So. Tell, but my mix is way too wet, so I'm just going to stir in a little bit of the pre-made mix, and that'll thicken it up. Well, unfortunately, with the amount of the pre-made mix I'm having to add to get this to the right consistency, I've pretty much negated the concept of pre-moistening the sand. But we'll see how it goes. Alright, this mix is still a little thin, but I'm going to go with it, and I'm also going to, since I've added so much of the premix, I'm going to let this stand for, say, 10 or 15 minutes, just to let everything absorb liquid. And then I'm going to come back out and I'll give it a final mix, and then I'll pour. Alright, let's pour this thing. Probably should put my phone somewhere so it doesn't drop in. Looks like I might have just enough. Let me get my little sticky dad back out here. Okay, I am actually short on mix, but I think I'm going to leave it at that. 6 scoops of sand was not enough. It takes at least 8, probably 9. 9 and 3 is probably the optimum mix. So I'm going to leave that. Now what's going to happen is it's going to start settling around the edge, and I'll have to come back out again and tap this and screed it again. But for now, I think it's good. I am going to have to get my hammer and give it a little vibration. Clearly, I have not been aggressive enough with my vibrator. Alright, I'm just going to let that go for about 20-30 minutes, and then I'm going to come out and I'm going to tap it again. Alright, let me do a little freehand here before I shut this down. I poured this thing about an hour ago, and it's still very wet. I don't even know if this is going to set right. It's got so much water in it. But as you can see here, I'm still kind of working the sides, and I'm still bringing air bubbles up. So clearly, part of the problem that I've had with this thing is I just have not been aggressively working these molds to bring those air bubbles up. So I'm going to tap on this thing a little bit more, and then I'm going to shut it down for the night. Okay guys, it is the next day, and I'm going to zoom in here. See some cracking? It's not terrible, but I'm not surprised because that mix was way too wet. And I'm actually surprised it's not cracking worse than this. That's not terrible, but it shouldn't be cracking at all. So I'm going to let this go for say 4 or 5 more days. I'm going to really give this time to cure, and before I pop it open, and because you can see here around the edges it's still wet. And of course it's only been about 12 hours, but yeah, it's cracking, but to be honest with you, it's not cracking as much as I thought it would. So again, I'm going to let it go for about 4 or 5 days, and I'll pop it out of the mold. What do you say, everybody? Paul from Cleveland. It is July 5th. The Independence holiday is over. Back out in the garage. Oh, it's going to be a hot one today. It's it's noon, and yeah, it's warm. Wow. Should we try a third time? Why not? The round one is over there drying. Cracked a little bit. I got a little, video of it. Not cracking as bad as I thought, though. That mix was way too wet. Now behind me, I have the rectangle mold. So I thought I'd get it cleaned up, lubed up, and we'll make it a rectangle pot. Might as well just do the whole set. Now, something I didn't talk about in this video so far. This video kind of showcases the problems that I've had with doing craft projects and DIY projects, it was pretty clear, I think, that I was getting a little frustrated. And I was getting a little frustrated because things just weren't turning out the way I was wanting them to. And that is really kind of the hallmark of some of the problems that I always have in doing DIY projects. And the problem is, I don't take the time to really learn what it is I'm trying to do. I'll give you another good example of that. Up in my craft room, there's, if you've caught it on any of the videos up there, maybe in that Vest series or something, over in the corner, there's a guitar. And years ago, I used to be a worship leader in a Baptist church. Did that for a number of years and picked up guitar playing as part of being a worship leader. I did worship leader, I was a vocalist, I did special music, and I was a choir director for a while. And, you know, enjoyed it. My style of music is really Southern gospel. I don't do the contemporary stuff, I can't stand it. Which kind of put me at odds with the pastor's wife was kind of the music director, and she loved contemporary Christian music, and I hate it. I absolutely can't stand it. So she all the time wanted me to sing, you know, what Stephen Curtis Chapman and some of these artists' music, and I just, you know, can't stand it. Getting back to the point though, guitar. I never really got very good with the guitar, and it always frustrated me, my skill level with the guitar. I was, you know, functional. And the reason why I didn't advance and didn't do well with the guitar is I didn't learn it the way that I should have. In my, you know, usual way of doing things, I thought, oh, I can get this. I'll teach myself. You know, watch some videos, taught myself rudimentary music theory and stuff, you know, just from the internet. Probably what would have helped immensely is if I had taken some lessons and spent some time learning, you know, rudimentary basics of playing the guitar. You know, built a solid foundation on which to build, you know, better skills. I don't do that. I don't do that well, and it frustrates me, you know, sometimes when I do projects. This flower pot thing, my thought was, well, I watched my grandfather do this. Well, how hard was it? I watched him do it. And then, you know, I discovered that pre-mixed Quickcrete mortar product, and I thought, well, this would make it even easier. Instead of really, you know, doing some research on, you know, the fundamentals of the craft of concrete, and concrete is a craft. To do it well, you have to learn the basics of, you know, mixing, pouring, vibrating, and all of these different things involved in, you know, the skill of pouring and laying concrete, because it is a skill. And it's one of those things too, like with my grandfather learned the skill. And one of the things that a really skillful person will do is they'll make the thing that they do look very simple. And so then everyone thinks that they can do it. You know, Michael Jordan made playing basketball look simple and look easy. There was only one Michael Jordan. So one of the things that I've really been remiss in when it comes to doing these craft and DIY projects is I don't spend enough time doing anything. You know, I just flit about from, well, I'll try this a while, I'll try this over here a while, ooh, that looks interesting, I'll try that. You really got to spend some time sometimes really fundamentally learning about the thing that you're trying to do, or you're just going to frustrate yourself. Now, I don't know whether or not, I don't know how much of the video that I took yesterday is going to be usable, because, you know, there was a party going on next door, people out front were setting off fireworks and so forth. I don't know how much that I'm going to be able to use. But I still haven't found that catalog that my grandfather had, and that's really bugging me, because that catalog is really, it's a little bit of my family history, because, my grandfather, he was kind of known in the area where he lived as being the guy that made the flower pots. And to this day, if you drive around northern Greenup County, Kentucky, you can still find houses with Grecian flower pots lining driveways, sitting on patios and front porches. Those were all made by my grandfather, years ago. And these molds that I have got to be at least 45 years old, possibly even closer to 50 years old, because I was a young child, when I would watch him make those flower pots. And so he was doing this, for years. I don't know exactly when he quit making them, but I can remember, that was his side hustle, if you will. It was his retirement income, basically, is what it was. He made and sold planter boxes. So, I don't even know what the point I'm trying to make here is. Oh, the catalog. I was trying to think of the name of the company. The company is called Concrete Machinery, and the company is still in existence, although if you read on their website, they have a company history listed on their website. The company was founded in 1945, but went essentially defunct in the early 2000s. Was purchased by another company in North Carolina and essentially revived as Concrete Machinery in around 2007, I think the article said. So the two molds that I have, you can still buy those molds. The round mold, they call it a Grecian tub, sells for $695. The rectangle mold that I'm going to be using today sells for $495. So I've got $1,200 worth of aluminum concrete molds. I really should, spend some time and learn the fundamentals of this. I don't know that this is something I would want to turn into my side hustle, but if I'm going to do something and do it well, I should really, do some practice with it. Now, I still may, before we move, I may see if I can find someone to buy these molds, because I've got enough things going on. I've got enough interests. I've got enough side projects making flour. You have to forgive me. I've got a wasp just flew into the garage, and I'm trying to keep an eye on it. So, do I need another project? Not really. So right now I'm just making pots for my wife to use, and then I'll figure out what to do from there. All right, that is 6. Okay. Now there's 9 parts sand. All right, I'm going to mix that in and I'm probably not going to put any more water on than that. Maybe one more. All right. Let's go with that. I believe that's 3 measures of water. And according to the concrete mixing guidelines that I have seen on the internet, the mix is 3, 1, and 2. So for 9 measures of sand, you need 3 measures of cement and 6 measures of water. So that was 3 measures of water. So I'm just going to leave this for now. Okay. Let's leave that alone and go put the mold together. Well, clearly you can see I got lazy last year and I did not clean this mold after I used it. You can see plenty of residual cement on this mold, so I need to take some time, give this thing a really good cleaning. Alright, got them cleaned up, they're dry. Outsides could still use a little more scrubbing. Now I've got to get them together, and that's a 2, and I believe that's a 1. And no, that's a 3, and okay, that'd be a 4. Alright, that makes sense. So we've got here, by the way, if you're interested in checking, this is number 545 if you're curious to look this up on their website. So let's see now. This is 1 and 2. Set him aside. And that's 4. Okay, so 4 goes to 4. Probably would help if I had a boat ready. All right, before I do anything else, I'm going to dump all of this excess water. That way I know I'm only going to get just the amount that I need. I'm going to dry out my measure. One thing I have noted, see how the color of that sand is very brown? General purpose sand, which I purchased this from over at Home Depot, is probably not the right sand to use. What I need is really good washed masonry sand. So after this, if the sand and cement seems to do a better job, I'll buy a better sand. Okay, now I'm just going to add just a dash of water. Not much, just a little bit. Well, I got it soupy once again. I still haven't got my mixing down, but I'm going to go for it. mix ratio down. Now, the article I read was in Mother Earth News, and they gave the formula 3, 1, and 2, which means I would have had to add 6 parts water to this mix, and I maybe at best did 5, and you can see it's still way, way, way too wet. So I'm not buying their 3, 1, and 2 formula. Whew, God, that's a mess. Okay, I'm just going to have to let that sit for a while and let some of that water ooze out of that, because that's still a mess. Alright, one last thing before I shut it down for the night. Over the next couple of hours, this thing is going to drain out. The water will slowly ooze out through the cracks and crevices, basically through the joints. Here you can see, down here you can see water slowly coming out. Well, what's going to happen is, as that water comes out, this stuff on top will settle down. And so I took the rest of that mix and I basically just piled it all on top. And a couple hours from now I'll come back out. As this more has drained out, more has settled, I will pack this down and squeeze out the remainder of the water that's on top. So now the takeaway from this is I still don't have, you know, my mixing technique down. I'm still getting mixes that are way, way too watery. But 9 and 3 is the right mix for these molds. So in the future, if I keep doing this, 9 and 3.